So here's my story again. I'm going to try to make it pretty quick, but how I got COVID and so forth. On January 1st of 2021, after flying back from seeing my mother, who was almost dead in the hospital, I flew to Atlanta and then flew back, and she had just about lost her mind. The doctors weren't sure if she would come back out of it. She had something where basically the blood, some kind of a bacteria was getting into the lungs, and it was very serious, and she almost died. And I saw her in a state where she was just speaking gobbledygook and didn't know who I was. So it freaked me out big time. And then as soon as I got back, I got COVID. And I think I got it on the plane. And I had a lot of like weird sensations in my abdomen and stuff. There was definitely something going on in there. And, I went to the emergency room and they said that, I'm okay. And it was so busy. It was in those tents outside. And I remember I was waiting for the doctor and I sang songs, but I was in such a terrible, anxious state. And I think it was not just the COVID, but also in combination of being sick with the COVID, I also was freaking out from my mom. I was freaking out from having COVID, freaking out from being in the tent, freaking out from having to be in a room by myself it ended up being 3 weeks of just total torment. And when I got COVID, I went 5 days with zero sleep. And I got these things called hypnic jerks, where basically when you're like 4 and 5 days into no sleep, when you start falling asleep, you'll get an electrical jolt that'll wake you right back up. It's like a whole shock shoots through you. It's so weird. And I got that, and then I don't remember exactly what day it was, but I did take some sleep medication because I didn't sleep for 5 days, and that I took Ativan, and there was another one. I can't remember the name of it, but that's the one I suspect could have given me COVID. I mean, not COVID, but tinnitus. And but I also had my ears checked, and I had a big plug of wax in my right ear. That also could have caused COVID. All the anxiety that I had from, and also COVID itself is known to cause tinnitus. There's a plenty of documentation on that. We're talking 10% or more of people getting tinnitus from COVID. So I don't really know exactly how I got tinnitus, but I know I went through a terrible time. And next I went into always worrying about my chest. I had something weird going on in there where it was all tight, and I don't know if it was mental or a little bit of both, maybe. But it took probably a good 6 months for the chest pains to go away. It was like my ribs were locked up and they wouldn't move. And then whenever I moved, I would have a sensation that hurt in my chest. Even breathing sometimes, I could feel it. And it was really bad. So I ended up taking some medications, which included Ativan, which in hindsight, I'm glad I took it. I think it helped me to get calmed down a little bit. And I took Seroquel for sleep, and Zoloft or sertraline for, I took that later. They told me you can't stay on Ativan. You're going to need to take an antidepressant if you're going to stay on Ativan, and you'll get off Ativan. So I did. And I got off Ativan, and then I got off Seroquel, and then I got off Zoloft. I finally got off all three of those by about February of this year, 2022. And then, what else? Turn the car off here, not waste gas. What else can I say? So I didn't just have tinnitus, but I had pains in my chest. I had a joint that's still not better. It got swollen up during COVID. I don't know why. I'm a dancer, and it seemed to have worsened. It got, I can walk fine, but I may have to get surgery later on, and it was probably caused by COVID. Maybe I had the problem there, but then it got a little worse. I had some knee problems, and that's fine now. So it's a story of, I don't know what COVID did and what me kind of losing my mind, which one was was the main culprit. I think it was a little bit of both. But anyways, going on, I had the tinnitus, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And if I couldn't stop thinking about tinnitus, then I couldn't stop thinking about my chest pain. And if I couldn't stop thinking about my chest pain, I couldn't stop thinking about the swollen joint in my toe. And I would just jump from one thing to the next, and I couldn't sleep almost at all. I mean, I told you I went 5 days with no sleep. Well, from there, I had the laptop by my head, and I played like background noises, the sound of a shower, and it tried to help me to go to sleep, but I couldn't. And I would be lucky to get an hour of uninterrupted sleep before I woke up. And then I might be able to go back to sleep for another hour. Maybe I would repeat that 2, 3, 4 times. And at the very, very best, I would get 5 hours of sleep, but that would be very rare. And I would sometimes get 0 or 1 or 2 hours. And it just totally wore down on me. I feel like I got older, just during that 1 year period. I'm doing a lot better now. I'm very thankful. But what was I saying? But, with the tinnitus, I mean, I would just go all day sometimes thinking about it and not being able to not think about it. And I just started trying to research, well, what the heck can I do? I would listen to Tony Robbins and who else? There's that lady, I'm trying to remember her name. I've recommended her before with the, what do you call it? The whirlwind of, I can't remember the name of the lady. But anyways, but I listened to a lot of motivational stuff to try to get my mind somewhere in a little bit better place than it was. And, it took a long time, but I did. And I think sometimes when you face a great challenge, you just have to look at what can you do today? What can you do? Maybe you're just not going to get better real soon. And that's what I had to deal with. I thought maybe I'll never get better for the rest of my life. I really thought that at times. But I'm like, well, what can I do? And, I did all kinds of stuff. And I've talked a lot about it on this channel. Making friends with tinnitus and saying, I love it. It's a nice sound. I'm so, okay with it now. And all the other ailments that I had, from having COVID and I guess a mental breakdown, So, is there anything else? Well, that's just a basic, story. You can just get a feeling for how tormented I was, for a long time. I would go, about May of last year, I got out of the apartment that I was in. I hated being in the room where I got COVID and where I was there, basically trapped there for 3 weeks and couldn't leave. Maybe I could have left, but there were sirens every night. That was when the most deaths were happening, hospitalizations. And every night I would hear the sirens. I would hear the wind howling outside. There was a fire near my house, up on the mountain. All kinds of just scary. It was like a nightmare that I went through. And, I couldn't sleep, and I was anxious all day. There was I went to the emergency room several times thinking there was something wrong with me, and they would say, you're okay. But actually my blood pressure would get high because I was so scared. And, I have to admit, I kind of lost my mind. I couldn't cope, and I had to take drugs, I don't think I'll go through that again. I think I'm prepared. If it were to happen again, I would learn to relax into it. And even if I die, I die, but I've got, if I can keep my mind, that's what's more important, And, of course, with tinnitus at first, I've got to solve this. I got to get, somehow I got to make it turn off, but I couldn't make it turn off. So, I won't talk about recovering from tinnitus, but if you watch my other videos, you can see I've recovered pretty well now, and, I don't have too many problems. So, anyways, that's my tinnitus story. I'm sure if I were to tell it again, it would be a little different, but that's it. Have a good day. See ya.